Hello, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining our event, Exploring Blockchain Ecosystem Collaboration Between Startups and SMEs. My name is Vytautas Černiauskas. I am an expert at Civit and Startup Division, and I am the moderator of this event. This event is organized by Startup Lithuania and BlockStart. Startup Lithuania is the facilitator of the Lithuanian startup ecosystem that is building a globally recognized and vibrant startup-friendly environment. And BlockStart is a blockchain partnership program that helps blockchain startups and SMEs to introduce their solutions to the market, commercialize, and bring them to scale. And the BlockStart is financed by the Horizon 2020 European Union program. It is my honor and pleasure to have fantastic participants today with us, and they will kindly share their experiences on the blockchain ecosystem. So first, let me introduce the first two speakers, and then we will go to the other nice participants today. Mirko Lawrence from TruBlo and Richard Crook from Lab577. Please, please first introduce yourselves and tell us what your organizations, what your programs are doing, and then we will talk a bit more about the blockchain ecosystem and dive deeper into our today's topic. Mirko, can you please start?
With pleasure. Thank you very much. Top of the line, I'm here as an innovation manager for TruBlo project. TruBlo is one of the EU-funded projects, and it has features cascade funding, meaning this new finance instrument where we have a small consortium and giving away money to startups and even very early stage pre-seed money ideas in order to facilitate, say, an academic team that needs some money to work on something that could be applicable. We just finished our first open call, one of three. The next one will start in May. We are currently in the interview phase for more than 70 valid applications, which made us very, very happy. We are working together with Worldline, which is interesting. It's a very big European payment processor from Spain, F6S, which is very fruitful as well, because with F6S, we are able to tap into a pan-European and even global network of startups and people from VCs and SMEs and so on. And it's interesting. It's interesting how you can connect things that are just a little bit out of reach for commercial usage at this moment. Let me, in just 2 minutes, tell a bit about my background. This is like my second or potentially third technology wave that I'm witnessing. I am an economist and historian and worked as a journalist for a long time, and then founded a small web consultancy in 1995 and started sales of technology project. And that was pretty much like it is today for the blockchain colleagues. People were always asking, what is the web? What is the web? Do we need to use it? Do we need to use it? It was quite a bit of translation work to be done in the early years. I later switched to Deutsche Welle, and I'm there for now more than 10 years. Deutsche Welle is quite involved in EU research projects. This is my 6th or 7th project by now, and we have 20 people. So it's quite a size. We're one of the biggest participants from the European media, even a little bit larger than BBC, just for comparison, not for picking on anyone. And maybe something else, I'm a founder of a successful startup and now chairman. I've been the CEO for 10 years in parallel. It's a data-driven journalism startup located in Berlin. We are handling data, we are enabling charting around the world. And that sums up what my contribution is here. I see myself as a facilitator and connector for younger teams and younger ideas who want to get a part in the market. And maybe just to be a bit more specific, where do I see chances in blockchain right now? There is kind of a winterish situation for purely blockchain applications. It's not easy since the hype in 2018. but I'm now seeing some really good examples of market fit. Just give two examples. One is Serali. Serali is a photo app from the UK. And what they do is they enable tracing of pictures, whether the picture is actually taken on where it is claimed to be taken. So they add a layer of data that can be stored in a blockchain so that for insurances, for media users, photos can be checked. Second example, it's even more obvious and then surprising that it's not already there. It's called a company from Amsterdam. It's called WordProof. WordProof. What they do is they timestamp articles. So when an article is published, you cannot just make up the date, which is one of the reasons for content fraud and content tricking in search engines, that you simply change the date from something old to something new, and then the search engine has hardly a way to check against it, which is amazing that it's so simple. So what they do is they kind of, when you publish, you get a timestamp that creates a hash, and that hash is then stored in a blockchain. That for itself is just a proof that you created that content, but it gets interesting. Should search engines start to pick up such information that is blockchain trustable in the future? And that's what's currently going on. So these are just two examples, and I would like to hand over, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mirko. Richard, can you please introduce yourself and also Lab577?
Certainly, it's Richard Crook. So I'm the founder of Lab577. It's a software company at the nexus of financial services and emerging technologies. My team and I stepped out from Royal Bank of Scotland, where I was running the emerging tech labs for Royal Bank of Scotland, where we were taking the shrink wrap of AI, quantum, and of course, blockchain. We brought to market the digital asset shared ledger. That's predominantly focused on the capital market space, but we're seeing a broader take up as we watch the embedded finance thematic cross through the market. And that provides a solution for both startups and large organizations or incumbent organizations alike who are trying to move to market or accelerate to market with their digital asset offering. All the way from crypto and the crypto brokers, right the way through to the trade finance applications that you're seeing out in the market now. Each are using Dazzle as a way of getting to market quickly on their blockchain of choice, be it Cord or Ethereum or something similar.
Okay, thank you. Since Mirko has already offered his view of some cases of application of blockchain and gave some examples, maybe you, Richard, could also talk about your view about what are the specific tenets or specific features of the blockchain technology that it allows to offer unique solutions to the market, and what are the possible ways to use it in real life, besides the obvious Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? So
when you set blockchain aside or next to the two other major tech waves that have come through, we've already had through the 70s and 80s and onwards into the 90s, the rise of the database, a centralized electronic repository. And for those challenges that we have where we need to keep a centralized store of data, we've certainly used it. The dematerialization of public securities is a great example, and the rise of things like the airline booking systems that we built in the 70s and 80s. Following that, the rise of the use of internet technology, TCP/IP, to give us a common application on our website, on our desktops. The browser gave us the ability to broadcast, distribute information at a phenomenal rate, and we built the Internet of Information that we've now spent 30 years building apps in that hub-spoke model. It's a long time since we rolled out a distributed application such as email onto the world. And what you're watching right now in the blockchain space is a creation of what we would describe as an Internet of Value. The store and transfer of value in a digital format across parties is really what we are watching. That has a number of disruptive activities across the industries. Probably first touch on the technology. those that are religious or bag holders in their blockchain, be aware that the technologies will converge over time. It'll take 5-10 years to converge, just as we've watched browsers and mobile phones converge over time so that you don't really notice the difference. They will also drop away from view. There are very few people on this planet who can explain how GPS works or TCP/IP works, but in its day, everybody wanted to know how GPS worked or TCP/IP worked. And what we're watching over the last 2 years is the slow descent of blockchain as a technology away from view and into the background where it should be, and people are starting to use it in anger. So those of you who've got an economics background, those of you who've got a business background, who aren't chomping at the bit to understand the technology, just want to know how to use it, very similar to the advent of the internet, where we don't really care how TCP/IP works, but we damn well know how to buy a book. You're watching blockchain, first of all, being used in trade finance. Actually, the reason for that is because just like payments has been ripped from the financial services industry and embedded into the real economy, Apple Pay, Google Play, you're watching the financial services of invoice factoring, debt creation, capital creation, coming out of the financial services and the financial services industry being turned inside out and being pushed back into the real economy. We're obviously going to start with the supply chains, where you've got value or goods and services going one way, and then you've got value payments going the other. And that is probably the biggest use case that we're watching blockchain exploding into. There are a number of projects out there, small and large, that have been going for a short amount of time or long, and they are vying to be the platform for doing trade finance. It gives you a view of where it's going on in the real economy, for those of you who've joined from outside the financial services. For those in the financial services, it's not all bad news. You look at the capital market space, and the genie out of the bottle that was created by the rise of the ICO market back in 2018 is now roaring through the private securities market. And what we did for the last 30 years, dematerializing public securities, is now about to happen on the private securities side, where in the private securities, a much larger market of both debt and equity, we are tokenizing that and turning those into digital assets which you can transfer.
Thank you. Before we went live, we had a really quick discussion occurring among ourselves, and that was about how blockchain as a technology, it gets overshadowed by the more prominent features of it. So let's say 4 or so years ago, give or take a little bit, we had the ICO boom. Last year, this year, we have maybe not a boom yet, but a lot of talk in the mainstream media about decentralized finance and NFTs, in particular, non-fungible tokens, as a focus area, especially this year. My question to you is, well, I will probably ask Mirko first. What do you think about what is the best way to talk to the broad spectrum of SMEs, commercial organization, and maybe even public sector about the benefits of blockchain technology beyond the ICO, beyond the NFTs, and there are so many other areas of application. And what is the best way to collaborate between the geeks, the ones that know about this technology, know the benefits, know what blockchain stands for, and how it can be used, and the broader society, so to say. How should we talk about it? How should we communicate? Mirko, as a communications professional, maybe you have some ideas here.
I think by example, Richard already said, I noted down his sentence that blockchain should be is moving into the background where it should be. And example means that you tell stories about use cases that are obvious. Just yesterday, I read a longer article about the pickup of crypto money transfer by Mexican immigrants in the US. The COVID situation has hit Mexico quite hard. There were no ways of, when people got out of jobs, they would not get any funding or by the state or whatever. So the number of remittances of money that has been sent from the US to Mexico has risen. And that is an old problem. This money transfer in small chunks from one country to the other is quite costly. We don't care about it because we seldomly use it, but millions of migrants are using it. And the costs of money transfer are very, very high. So there's a website called Rest of World, which is run by the daughter of Eric Schmidt, the Google top manager for a long time. And it has a story, I can share the link later, of how Mexican migrants are picking up crypto ATMs that are placed in supermarkets in the US to send over money. And the cost is considerably less. For a $100 transfer, you could easily pay up between $5 and $10 in the normal world. And it can cost down to $1 to transfer the $100 if you use crypto wallets. And it's a money-to-money transfer, so it's not an investment in crypto per se. Normally, people want to get over $100 and then change them into pesos in Mexico. That is a story for me, and it sums up, and then I'm coming to an end. If you can have these kind of examples that are measurable, beneficial, and basically easy to use and already out there in the real world, you see pickup in the market. I'm pretty sure this is it's what Richard said. Nobody talks about blockchain. I use it because it's convenient and cheaper.
Okay, thank you, Mirko. Makes sense. Richard, your thoughts on this one?
So I think you're watching not only SMEs, but also the public sector and to a great extent, some of the incumbents, very much focused for them. Emerging technologies would be cloud and API. What most startups think of as native to a cloud or native to their own being is, of course, we have an API, and of course we have cloud, but actually for many of these organizations, they're still dipping their toe in many of these types of technologies. But what they'll discover is actually they're connecting lots of APIs bilaterally, and doing so, they're creating a web amongst their ecosystem, amongst their industry, one that needs to be maintained. And actually what they're seeking is a common network that they can transfer not only information, but also value back and forward while they're holding between them a common truth, a common record. And that's where you start to see blockchain, we sometimes call it enterprise blockchain, being used to form or create a distributed database between many parties. A good example of that is in the UK. The Hojit company is attempting to bring together the real estate market, and that's for the retail real estate market, where there are many actors, all usually small, medium enterprises, or public sector organizations. And actually for it to work as a flow of purchasing a house, you need to connect to a lot of different people in one big API. Kojit could sit in the center of that and attempt to create a highly centralized entity, Facebook, if you will, or a Google. But in doing so, in creating that platform, the rest of the market recognize the monopoly that they would have. And actually, when you look to talk to SMEs and you look to talk to the public sector, they are not interested in creating yet another platform that they'll have to pay rent to. What they're interested to do is create a neutral platform that they can work with. And that's really where blockchain is being used to mutualize costs between those organizations in their own industry, be it for the purchases of houses or for the provenance of goods and services throughout the sector. And that's largely what you see as we tend to call enterprise blockchain. Yeah, the banks are leading that because they've got a general interest. They've mutualized costs in their industry for hundreds of years. But actually, in the other industries and the other sectors, we see a lot of that now starting to occur.
Thank you, Richard. These are amazing insights from both of you, and we will come back to Richard and Mirko. And now I'm really eager to present two more of our participants today, actually working day to day in developing those solutions and bringing them to the market. So at the BlockStart program, as I introduced before, we have on one side, blockchain startups that are developing blockchain solutions. On the other side, we have SMEs that are working with those startups and piloting and implementing together and bring those solutions to the market. So today with us, we have a couple of BlockStart alumni or part of the BlockStart program. We have Krzysztof Radecki from Rexio and also Reinis Skorovs from Kedian. So I will ask first Reinis to present yourself and also Kedian and describe to us what exactly Kedian is doing and how does your solution look like.
Of course, thanks for the introduction. So my name is Reinis and I'm the founder and CEO of Kedian. And just to give you a brief overview first about our experience at BlockStart, and I'll also tell a little bit very shortly of what we do. So we joined BlockStart over a year ago, almost a year ago, with just a rough prototype. We had an idea of bringing sensor data on a blockchain. So as Vytautas mentioned, you have a lot of talk about financial systems on a blockchain. You have a lot of talk about decentralized finance. Our idea was how can we apply the same technology to many problems that are faced in different industry, more specifically in the supply chain space, where my co-founders have worked for multiple years and have seen many problems that could be utilized with the help of blockchain. So we joined BlockStart, and with the funding available, we were able to build out our team and develop a solution, our first kind of MVP version for our solution. And it consists of both hardware and software. So we produce such sensor devices. It's a small device able to monitor temperature, humidity, light, CO2, movement, as well as all the quality factors. But what's unique about it, that it actually digitally signs every single measurement on the device itself, as well as the calibration certificates are stored on the device as well. Meaning every single measurement can be tracked back to each device, can be fully verified by any entity recipient of a shipment, something that has not been possible previously. And we offer this as a package together from hardware, but as well as software tools that enable companies to better track shipments or products in the supply chain. And kind of the unique kind of advantage of being part of BlockStart, it pushed us really to not only develop our solution that we previously only had a rough prototype, but it was this drive towards not simply building technology, but building something that can be applied by SME adopters, by companies right away. So we were able to launch with over 5 companies, small, medium enterprises in the European Union from multiple countries. We were able to launch those pilot projects during BlockStart, and this was the core reason why we are where we are here today. And since then, we have broadened our work and now work with over 25 companies in 7 countries right now.
Great. I will definitely want to come back to the actual collaboration with those SMEs. But before that, I want to introduce Krzysztof. Krzysztof from Rexio. Please tell us about yourself and what Rexio is building.
Hi guys, thanks Vytautas. My name is Krzysztof. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Rexio. We are a data trust company. I second what Richard said, that blockchain is in the Internet of Value, but we go even further than that. We believe that blockchain is the true enabler of trust. It's the Internet of Trust that's coming towards us, and we have one goal: to bring that trust to the masses, to bring that trust to companies that have existing processes that don't need to be changed immediately just in order to adopt the technology, but they just need a small tweak in the backend, in the engine, that will put that trust in their data context. So that's what we do, and we have decided to build a product that doesn't require any IT expert to become a blockchain cryptography guru ninja. They just have to understand the basics of deploying a new component to the infrastructure, plugging that in, and running that on their premises, everything in a GDPR compliant context. The markets we target with our solution are the techs, the X techs, meaning fintech, insurtech, regtech, any platform that requires trust to extend beyond their infrastructure. We introduce trust component into relationships between people who do not directly trust each other, policy holder and insurance company, sender and recipient of goods. If you have to facilitate something that requires trust over distance without meeting each other, we can do that. And you can plug our technology into your ecosystem, into your backend. And Mauro can confirm that later in less than 15 minutes. So that's Rexio, and that's about us.
Thank you, Krzysztof. And now to the good part, to the very essence of the topic of today, of the collaboration between the blockchain startups and SMEs. I want to introduce Mauro Manente from Latitude 40. Probably sounds nicer in Italian. I don't even know how 40 in Italian is. Please, Mauro, tell us about yourself and about Latitude 40 and what is your company doing? And then we will dive deeper into the collaboration.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Mauro Manente. I'm the CTO of Latitude 40, that is Latitude 40 because it's in Esperanto. And it means basically the latitude of Naples, where we are based. We are a data company, basically. We work with satellite images for extracting useful or actionable insights. So our products create geospatial information that we use in several market sectors. As Krzysztof said, that we are a data company, and we need also to trust, to add the trust in our data. Why this? Because, for example, we developed a platform that allows simply accessing data from space without being an expert of satellite images. Obviously, our customers that are maybe in agricultural sectors or for the urban sector even more, they need to be sure that what happened during the whole workflow of searching, downloading, processing, and distributing the information from satellite images has not changed during time. So this is why we started thinking about blockchain, adding blockchain technology to our platform. And here comes the real good thing, because we started with Krzysztof to just explaining them which were our needs, and probably, I don't know if we're 15, but probably in 20 we got the result, because it's the Rexio product is really simple to integrate. It was really simple to integrate in our platform, also because it was something like deploying a new piece of application without the need of knowing all the technical specs of blockchain or whatever. So it was really interesting to interact with the guys saying, okay, this is our cloud infrastructure, this is our machine that is available for you, then a couple of lines of code, couple of testing, and that's it. It was really interesting, and we had the chance to show to our customer how the data that we are producing from the images can be trusted and in some way this allowed us to be different also from our competitors that make more or less our same things. So this is also a value-added point from not only from a technology point of view, but also from a selling motivation point of view. Don't know, Chris, if you want to add some experience of our cooperation.
Gladly. Yes. So we were initially quite afraid because we've done those deployments on our own, on our infrastructure a number of times with my amazing team. It worked perfectly seamlessly, but there's always this question: will the customer be convinced that it's also as easy? Are you biased as a developer that your product is amazing, that it's simple to plug into infrastructure, or maybe it's really the case and you just needed confirmation? So we had a very first initial meeting where we discussed how it's going to work. And then we just started deploying it, more even than just started. We gave basically the code and the tools to Mauro to deploy it, just to see how the customer interacts. He was our guinea pig basically for testing if the process is as seamless as we believe. And like he said, 15-20 minutes later, it was working. We did some tests with real life data, and magically it was being signed on the blockchain. We could validate that. So Mauro's company was one of the key elements in our journey towards adopting product with customers, because it was the confirmation of months of work that we've been leaving behind, and engaging with customer-focused journey ahead.
Okay, thank you. I will definitely come back to Mauro and Krzysztof and your collaboration, but I want to ask Reinis first. You mentioned that you collaborated with 5 companies, with 5 SMEs, 5 adopters, as we call them in the BlockStart program. Can you tell about your experience, about finding them, about starting the collaboration, about explaining how you can help them, about the very first initial steps, and then how did that those relationships develop further on?
Right. So kind of the main point that I would love to touch upon is that in our space, if you talk about the supply chain space, our SME adopters are not very much not technology companies. So I would say it's totally different approach maybe than in like for Rexio and Latitude 40. So the kind of value proposition and the way of how to convince companies to work with you is totally different. And the core reason for this is that small or medium-sized companies, they often don't even have a dedicated IT team, and they are very much focused on their core business, which in our case is grocery delivery, which is meat wholesale and logistics processes. So the main reason why we decided to work to join BlockStart was that there's this additional incentive in the very beginning. Because obviously, if you launch a new product, it might not bring value right away. There's going to be some time until you work with your SME adopters closely to make sure that they get a certain value from your product. And BlockStart provided this extra incentive, which really helped us to cut our development time much shorter, so that we can launch to the market with a product that might not be fully ready just yet, and work with the SMEs that have this extra incentive to make sure that you fully develop your product, you validate it, and then you are ready to work with more companies later on. And this gave us so many insights about how our solution should be different, how it should be adapted for the needs of those companies. But at the same time, it gave our SME adopters the chance to try something out with no risk. And this is important because they know about the kind of this technological process. There's a lot of opportunities, that they have a lot of problems in their business that might be solved with technology such as blockchain. But will it really save us money? Those companies often don't have a budget specifically to test solutions to see if it works. maybe this startup has overpromised and underdelivered. Here with the BlockStart project, it gave this kind of a fully kind of way for both sides to test out new technology, and it gave value to both sides. So I believe this was kind of the main point from this collaboration that I would like to emphasize.
Great, thank you, Reinis. I want to come back to you, Mauro, and ask maybe a couple of steps behind, trying to understand. So you have these business challenges. You're thinking about how to certify the data that you're working with. How did it all start? How did you think about collaborating with the blockchain developer? Maybe how did you hear about these opportunities? How did you select from possible solutions? Just the very beginning of your thinking, and how did you actually came to this collaboration with Rexio and Krzysztof?
Thank you for the question. It was quite funny because we were not struggling, but thinking on how to add this kind of features to our product. Also because in our product market fit actions, we had also the chance to ask for potential to the potential customers which kind of features can be a game changer of their business or for their customers, because our solution is also in a market that is B2B to B. Then more than several times we had the answer that they need to certify for insurance purposes, for relationships between their own customers, on what happened to their work. In agriculture, the agriculture is probably one of the funny examples. The chance to demonstrate that maybe there was a weather accident that made the yield less than expected. And what we are doing is collecting the images, demonstrating that there was an accident, and demonstrate also that the images are certified. So on this basis, we were discussing among us, and then there was not an idea from me, but from our CEO Gaetano, and he said probably we can use something like blockchain. And that was the opening key. So they decided, okay, let's start to understand how to move, and that's it. It started, and we find it was moving toward the program, and he probably Christopher met before me, met Gaetano, and brought to him, which was all the stuff. So that was the beginning.
Okay, thank you. And Krzysztof, from your side, Reinis has already touched upon a little bit about that, but how did you work with finding, well, basically first clients, even if they're just piloting your solutions? How did you find them? What kind of arguments did you offer them to try out your solutions or to pilot, and later on to commercialize? Can you tell about that journey, and maybe some of the startups listening could use some of that experience from your side?
It's a lengthy journey we had. We have this challenge with our product that it targets a very particular industry with long sales cycles, with very strong networking required to position yourself as a vendor in that market, which means that if you start with a good idea, validating that idea with the customer might take longer. So what do you do in that case? You either look for financing with VCs, or try to find a different way. VCs, you require people who understand the technology, have passion for the technology, and can really provide financial means to kickstart your idea into more tangible product. But we have this luck to be part of this amazing organization called European Union that trusts in research and development, that puts their trust in new companies and can fuel that passion if you don't find the right investor in the VC stage. And that's what happened to us. So we were looking for people who understand passion for technology, who can see that blockchain as not just a cryptocurrency conveyor, but as a technology, has much more to offer. And that's how we came across BlockStart, that had this goal to connect customers and vendors of technologies, SMEs that are looking to solve their particular problem, and startups that have a solution that just begs for adoption because it's so technology changing, life changing. With that initial spark, it started a larger flame. We had some experience already with companies like Latitude or 40 with Mauro, and we're able to use that as an argument when talking to potential larger adopters. And that's how we came across insurance companies from CEE that were eager to listen to us, eager to understand how the technology can be plugged into their ecosystem. In the meantime, the obvious happened. The last 2 years have been sparked and marked by self-distancing, relationships over distance, which again was another catalyst of our solution that is designed to fill that gap, to fill that void that happened in the past 18 months, where people had to start interacting remotely, where initially they were still doing business based on some sort of trust. I know you, so just send me that picture. I'll trust that you didn't change it. But as our society has evolved towards more openness towards remote interactions, you needed to find a solution that will be a stronger foundation for those relationships than just, I know you, we played golf, so let's keep on doing business remotely. So that's basically our journey, starting with an idea that required someone who understands our passion, who will link us with the right people who need that kind of technology, and using that small foundation, small experience from those interactions as a kickstart platform for bigger customers that we are right now collaborating with.
Thank you, Krzysztof. And Reinis, a very quick question for you. Maybe you have some tips for other startups, blockchain or not blockchain, about especially in the B2B space that you work with, about finding the first customers, finding the first SMEs to pilot maybe your solution if you're in the beginning cannot find paying customers. Any tips about where to start, what to do, what not to do, or maybe mistakes that you have made when collaborating with some of the initial adopters?
Definitely. So I would say one of the main goals in the very beginning is to not try to sell. First, you always have to go out and try to only interview them, make this connection with them, and try to go through their business, try to understand their business, their day-to-day operations, and try to look for touch points where your solution could be useful for them. Try to understand how you can make their life easier within 1 to 2 weeks, how your solution or your product could be adapted in a way that they can see value in the short term. And I believe this is like a crucial part. It's not about developing something that you think is very valuable and then going out and trying to sell it. It's about interviewing your potential customers. And what I have seen personally with kind of going through the journey with this startup and also my previous company is that many companies, they think they have the right product, but in the process of customer interviews, you actually realize that what you're selling is maybe something totally different than what you first thought is your main value proposition or your main sales point. And the same is also in our case. Previously, we thought our solution is going to be simply a better hardware for doing this, as well as kind of maybe an easier to use dashboard. But it's actually data points that we can give them right away. It's data insights that other companies are not offering. And this is something that small, medium-sized companies are struggling with. They don't have the resources to use most of the existing solutions in the market and then hire people to make sense of the data. They need something that they can start using and get value out of it. And this is something that we only were able to learn while speaking directly with customers and not trying to tell them how great our product is, but actually putting kind of ourselves in their shoes and understand of how their business works. So that would be kind of my top recommendation.
Great, great insights. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Krzysztof, do you have something to add from your experience?
Sorry, Christoph, jump things. I can't echo for those on the webinar who may have just tuned out. Cannot echo the words that Renis has just shared with us are so important that you don't have a product until you're solving someone else's challenge. You might be solving your challenge, but you're not solving somebody else's. And I'm just going to repeat what you've said, Renis, because I think it's really important to recognize if you're in a market that's emerging, and if you're playing with an emerging tech, you probably are, it's moving, it's changing, and therefore you need to too. And until you are a small, medium enterprise that's grown up from being a startup, you haven't got a company. You are simply trying to find a market product fit, and the product and the market will be moving towards you or against you. I tend to use the analogy of surfing, where you're out in that deep water, waiting for a wave. You could be out in that water, bobbing on that board for many weeks or many months until actually the waves come in and you can surf. Mirko, you could probably concur on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I want to ask Krzysztof as well to share his maybe tips, advice for fellow startup founders who want to go out and sell or actually solve a problem, and by solving a problem, earn money and earn a living.
Sure. I second what Renis has said. Initially, we targeted large companies, and this means that until you find the right person to talk to, you might really talk to thousands of wrong people on their end that do not understand the business. Maybe they don't have the incentive to work with you. They just try to be the nice guys talking to you because they feel it's the right way to do, just to feel you okay. Make you feel okay, but you're not moving forward with that until you start talking to smaller companies directly with the people who are stakeholders in the business, like Mauro and Gaetano from Latitude 40. They were the ones who really told us what they are looking for. Initially, Rexio was a platform for insurance companies. You were using a mobile device to provide insurance evidence. You want to insure your Bentley, prove me that you have a Bentley before I give you insurance. And they told us, well, we just need to have that trust in the pictures we are receiving from a satellite. Okay, well, we can plug that into their infrastructure without any challenges. So we decoupled those two core components from this mobile insurance platform and put them as a separate offering. And that's where the idea to really address needs of not just insurance companies in a car industry market, but to address the trust in data issue emerged. Like talking to people who really have a pain point that you're addressing really sparks ideas how to move forward with that.
Thank you. I want to come back to Mirko and Richard and ask for your insights and your thoughts about this collaboration between startups, between blockchain startups developing solutions and a broader market, specifically SMEs, but not necessarily, and how to engage and how to actually encourage that collaboration, especially in the commercial space. Mirko, can you offer that as your thoughts?
Yes, I tell what I would currently advise to a small team that would come across in TruBlo. If you have whatever solution that is used relatively quickly and where the usage can be measured, I think over time, usually this usage will be funded as well. So it's a little bit the other way around. I know it's getting these two together. The experience that I have on that is not exactly from the blockchain space, because in 2012, when we launched our data visualization startup, we basically simplified how an editor could create a bar chart or a line chart. Because before it would have taken like 3 or 4 hours going to the graphics department and so on. Then we launched a embarrassingly bad demo, but it was used by a newspaper here in Germany in the first hour without us knowing the newspaper, and the newspaper created a chart and published it on its website. And then later the Guardian data block used it quite a long time, and so on and so on. Today, like 7-8 years later, we have 100 million chart views every day on our platform, every day around the world. So a lot of the COVID charts you see from large media around the world are potentially powered by us. And, you know, it's a simple change. And what I can offer to the blockchain community, where are areas that in 5 years look embarrassingly complicated once we have installed better solution based on blockchain? Like I mentioned, the publishing of articles, the positioning of your content on search engines. Why is it so complicated to just prove that this content is actually from you and is valid content? So I stop there. Maybe Richard has to ask something else.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're focused on the startups engaging with the SMEs. One of the fundamental differences of an SME is that they're agile. They can adapt to you relatively quickly, and as a startup, they can attempt, just as that journalist inside that newspaper use that graph or that visual from a startup. They can adapt without permission, without authority, without authorization, all the legals that might come with a large organization, where journalists probably got fired if it was a large organization until they'd agreed the rights around it. Also worth noticing that you're not that dissimilar as a startup as to an SME. The SME is just maybe a year, 2 years ahead of you. So the people involved in an SME are probably very aware of the challenges you have as a startup, and are therefore far more forgiving, just as they may be of a poor demo. They also have their own cash flow issues, as you do as a startup, and therefore they recognize that they may be able to pay a different schedule to make it easier for you as a startup in terms of the funding, and you should always look at those approaches. The other counter of that is, of course, that a small medium enterprise SME still is small, and therefore their team is focused as a small team on a very small amount of bandwidth that they have to share with you. A startup and an SME wasting huge amounts of time is not good for either company, its shareholders or its management. And if you're not working on something that's not urgent and not important, then you are wasting both companies' times. Now that is worth countering in terms of when you get engaged, and one of the other speakers has already mentioned it, but we'll reinforce it. When you're engaging with the large brands, with the large companies, you are staring at the prize of having that brand on your website and having sold to that large company, but not assess the risk of how long it's going to take you to do that sale. We tend to, and having been inside these large organizations like Royal Bank of Scotland and being on the other side, the normal rule of thumb here is it takes 2 years before an invoice will be cut from the first contact of that startup. So that startup better have 2 years worth of runway to survive. A manager, a sponsor, a budget holder inside one of these large corporates has an average life expectancy of 3 years. So every time one of those managers rolls over, changes, moves to a different organization, you will reset your sales cycle back for another 2 years. So you better be prepared if you're going to go in and try and sell to those large brands, that not only will it take 2 years, but you can also play snakes and ladders for an awful long time. So it may seem like it's a bad idea to go into those large organizations, but there is a reason why people are going into those large organizations. As a great boss of mine used to point out, once we've bought one of these startups, even if we wanted to get rid of them and we started the first day we cut an invoice, it would take us 10 years to get rid of them. So they're incredibly sticky as customers once you've got them. But that 2 year, 10 year rule is worth reminding yourself when you're looking at your sales strategy and where you're going to spend your time. If you haven't got the stomach for that sales cycle, then it's not worthy of trying to chase it.
Amazing advice. Thank you, Richard. Before the closing remarks, I just want to come back to Mirko briefly. And in the very beginning, in your intro, you mentioned 2 apps, and we actually have people in the audience asking for those app names. They were intrigued about those 2 specific uses of blockchain. Can you name the apps that you mentioned? Those 2 examples, if you have them.
Of course, that was WordProof, wordproof.com, like in WordPress, but with proof, and you'll find them. They have a commercial arm where they work with publishers and a non-commercial arm where they have a foundation in order to enable, say, timestamping of content for non-commercials. They are well recognized inside the EU. They got a €1 million fund from a competition that they won. The founder is WordPress Pro. He's a founder of a WordPress agency out of Amsterdam with like 25 people, and they focused on blockchain. It's a bit, I liken it to that the traffic, like free traffic with cars has just been invented, and we're all enjoying driving around with cars, but number plates haven't been invented. Yeah, so when there is an accident or you're trying to search for one car, no way finding that car. I find it amazing how these little elements need to be added to larger market. The second one was called Serelay, Serelay. I can post the link here, and maybe somebody from the team can post it on Facebook or so, where the audience is, I believe. I will do that in a second. They have a competitor called TruPic from the US. Both of these companies are on the verge of implementing their algorithms on mobile phone chips, so that the camera in the phone has a way of trustable photo taking. That even extends, for example, to the case that they can detect whether you made a screenshot because the picture has not been done in a 3D environment. That kind of stuff can be checked. So they don't need a lot of space to check these photos, but you have a much higher quality of trustable photos, for example. So I put up the links, sure.
Thank you. We will definitely share them with the audience. Thank you. And it's time for us to wrap up. So I will ask each of you to share some parting thoughts about blockchain, about collaboration between startups, SMEs, large corporates, whatever other thoughts that you might have. But so far, it has been a lot of interesting information that you have shared. I'm super thankful for all of that. Mauro, can we start with you? Can you share some parting thoughts from your side?
Oh yeah, obviously. I think under a technological perspective, under my technological perspective, this will be something that will be more and more applied. The blockchain technology will be more and more applied, also because, as I already said, trusting data, and we will be a data company, it make the difference. So for me, it would be an advantage, getting advantage of this technology.
Thank you, Mauro. Rainis, your parting thoughts, comments, anything else you want to add, please?
Yes, so I would kind of want to reiterate back to the beginning when Richard and Mirko had this discussion, and they talked about if you have in the early days of the internet, it was also more of a technology focus, but nowadays people don't really care if they use TCP for visiting a website or using a service. And I hope for the blockchain space that we will also move towards having solutions where you're not just emphasizing that you're using new emerging technology, but to provide direct value. For us, for example, this means our solution for some of our customers, we were able to actively decrease the cost of litigation between parties when there's a dispute between certain shipment. And this is kind of a direct saving, and they don't care that we do this by having legally binding measurements that are verifiable on a public blockchain. They don't care about it. They care about the immediate effect or the kind of the effect that it has on their business. And I really hope that in the blockchain space overall, we will move towards not just simply talking about technology, but also about these applications, and not just about future applications, the future big world-changing things, but also the small things every day that we already have in place, that companies have in place, and how they can be utilized. So that's kind of my main closing thoughts.
Thank you, Rainis. Krzysztof, please share from your side.
It's always great to be part of a discussion with people who are very much like-minded. What Rainis said is something that I tend to repeat and discuss with my colleagues and potential partners, but from a slightly different angle. Oftentimes blockchain is just used for the hype of it, for the sake of hype. You know, blockchain is there, so we have to implement blockchain, but let's use the private blockchain because, you know, it's safer. So what I tend to say is educate people. 30, 40 years ago, we had intranet and internet. You know, we had those internal networks because people were afraid of public data, you know, sharing public information, using public networks. Right now, we have the same cycle happening over and over again. Let's use private blockchain because we are afraid of public blockchains. So educate, explain, tell the benefits of this open ecosystem, this amazing technology that has potential to change the fabric of society. And don't do that behind closed doors.
Great, thank you, Krzysztof. Mirko, your thoughts, your parting thoughts, please.
Well, something that has not been mentioned is whether we can create benefits for industries or areas of exchange where so far it hasn't been really possible. I give an example. This is already the second blockchain project I'm in. Before we had a standard European research project called Blomen, and Blomen was about the usage of blockchain for media assets like music, like video and photos, and I was heading the photo use case. And what we found, like not in a commercial way, but in a research sense, is what could be very attractive is the niche of the niche. We were asking around in the photo department of Deutsche Welle whether they would need extra photos, and they said no. They said, no, we're getting all the photos we need from Reuters and Picture Alliance and so on and so on. So that is what a lot of startups find as a situation. It seems saturated. And then we said, well, is that really covering everything? Oh, now that you're asking, we are not getting any photos from Africa. Like, you know, for Deutsche Welle specifically, Africa is a target region. It's a wide continent. You don't get photos of everyday life, like normal photos from Nigeria, from Zambia, from South Africa, just so. They're hard to find. So we reached out to African photographers. And the problem there is that so far, without blockchain-enabled networks, it's really hard to exchange this kind of content, like commercially. You cannot make it a platform, like a big photo platform. Then you get, you know, safari pictures. That's not what anybody's looking for. So there must be kind of a meaningful connection between creator groups, and maybe that's a word we should at least mention here, creative industries and creators. They have seen their margins going down through digitalization usually, because everything is now there in abundance and platforms are taking away the business. But maybe with blockchain-enabled trustable connections, we can exchange these kinds of assets on platforms. Then we built a photo exchange platform just for demonstration purposes, one that worked, one that put all of the pictures into a blockchain, so for verifiable transfer of tokens then. So it was just a demonstrator. But we're still in talks whether we can implement that across European public broadcasters, which are 63. So it's quite a number of public broadcasts. So that's how a niche of a niche can become quite a market. So that was my parting suggestion.
Thank you, Mirko, for bringing a wider perspective. And last but not least, Richard, please, your wrapping up thoughts.
So we spent 25 years rolling out the Internet of Information. We've done a phenomenal job on that. And actually, what you're now starting to see is that Internet of Value being rolled out. Now, this is early days. There is certainly not a position where the world needs 100 blockchains. And what we are watching is the slow convergence of those blockchains, probably into 1 or 2, maybe 3, that are viable and useful for their different use cases. The convergence of that we saw in the telco industry with mobile phones and smartphones, and we saw it with browsers too, where Bitcoin might be the first, but just like Netscape, it might not be the last. And we probably haven't even seen the Chromes or the Facebooks or the Googles yet, but we probably have seen an Amazon or two. The point about private and public blockchains is a misnomer, in my opinion, where if you're trying to do financial services, you're not going to be on an anonymous network. You need to have known actors on the other side to counter financial crime. So you're not actually looking for a private network, and the analogy of internet is correct. You're looking for a network that you can join and that there isn't some monopolistic institution in the middle that owns that network, because otherwise you might as well have just used a database. You're recognizing that blockchain requires multiple parties, so there's only so much fun you can have on your own with a blockchain. And we've got a number of press releases where we see vendors on their own talking about their blockchain, and it's not a lot of fun for them or for everybody else. But when you're looking at the blockchains, you're starting to see differences between them, where things like Ethereum have a public blockchain in the same way, so does Corda. But actually, you have complete transparency on the Ethereum blockchain. Everyone can see everything, which is great for some use cases, timestamping, being able to see provenance. But from point of view of doing commercial transactions or issuing capital, not so great. You want privacy around your commercial transactions. Not everybody wants to see their customers or clients' payments going back and forward. And therefore, you're starting to see different technologies emerging, Corda, Ethereum being two examples, but they're robbing from each other. And slowly over time, if you look at ETH 2.0, it's very similar to Corda. So I wouldn't get too hung up, just as we didn't get too hung up about Netscape or Internet Explorer. Over time, these blockchains will merge into one, stay above it, try and build the apps that work on that, and don't find yourself trying to, I think back to Rainis's point, don't find yourself stuck trying to sell one product until you've sold it. It's not a product. Keep moving, keep changing, keep adapting, and hopefully you'll find a product and a market fit.
Thank you. Thank you. There has been so many interesting thoughts shared today, and so much knowledge, and so many inspiring ideas. So thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mirko, Mauro, Reinis, Krzysztof. Thank you, everyone, for joining and watching us today. Thanks.